This is Monday Motorsport with Lester Forbes on Motorsport Radio.
Hello and welcome to Monday Motorsport. My name is Lester, and coming up on tonight's programme we've got a British Formula 3 review of what happened at Snetterton, and the British GT Championship was in action. Two fantastic hour-long races at sunny, boiling hot Snetterton. Dan Marr and Nick Smith will be here reviewing all the action here on Motorsport Radio. Plus we've got guests Connor Jackson from the Checkered Flag, Nick Smith as well from the Image Team and 956. Plus you will hear on this show from the likes of Seb Morris, James Littlejohn, Adam Mackay, Alex Reed, David Pittard, Jack Mitchell, Johnny Adam, Will Tregurtha is going to be right here on tonight's show. Sandy Mitchell, Phil Keane, Kieran Haggerty. Plus, I'll be talking Formula 3 later in the show with Connor Jackson from the Checkered Flag website, journalist and podcast host as well, who will be talking to Callan O'Keefe and Jordan Kane, who's recently turned 16 years old, and he's making his debut this weekend in Formula 3, which we'll get to in just a moment. Dan Marr is here co-hosting tonight's show, and it's the first ever co-host that I've ever had on one of my shows. So Dan Marr, GT action this weekend. What might we expect to hear from on the show?
We're going to hear Lamborghini's winning, basically, and then it being taken away through a driver penalty. Obviously we're going to have lots of different bits to try and cover. We're going to speak to a whole host of people. We've got loads of great interviews, some good insight into what came up in the two races here at Snetterton. Not an easy track to overtake, but it still meant we have plenty of action in our two one-hour races this weekend, and it's setting up the championship quite nicely, I'd say.
We will get to the British GT Championship races in the show later. Some fantastic action happened, and Dan and Nick Smith will tell you all about it, and you will hear from those drivers. But first, on tonight's programme, it's BRDC British Formula 3, and the action kicked off on what should have been really a boiling hot, scorching, unusually hot Snetterton circuit, sweltering conditions, but for one minor thunderstorm, which happened right at the start of qualifying, which saw a very wet track, but it was drying very quickly. What with all the heat and stuff, it meant that basically the times were tumbling up and down, and there was a lot. It was think of a classic Formula 1 qualifying session. Like that, basically. And it was James Pull who slammed in a 2-minute lap, albeit 15 seconds slower than they went midweek, to get pole position and his first BRDC Formula 3 pole position. And as if by magic, here I am down in the assembly area, and having a wander about before race number 1. It's actually race number 7 of the season, but race number 1 here today. It's a Saturday afternoon, and you can see that, well, that's not James Pull in the car. Actually, he is on position, having taken his first pole position in Formula 3, and we'll just have to wait and see what he does in the car, keeping everything warm and ready. NM Ahmed is alongside him, having a fantastic duel. It was a classic Formula 3 duel in qualifying. Paul and Ahmed trading the time in a drying track as well, because it started out with a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning and a lot of rain. It was a very surprise downpour at the last minute. Toby Sowry with a brilliant third place at the beginning race number 1 in Callan O'Keefe's car, the Douglas Motorsport car. He actually has a new teammate for this weekend, for the presumably for the rest of the season, because formerly announced Hillspeed Wycliffe Dempsey racer Jordan Kane, who just turned 16 just before the week began, has dramatically, I'd say, switched teams already, and he's now no longer going to be racing with Hillspeed Wycliffe Dempsey Racing. He's actually Callan's teammate, racing with Douglas Motorsport. Jamie Chadwick collecting her thoughts ahead of the first race here this afternoon. Callan O'Keefe sat with his having done his pre-race warm-up schedule. He was telling us how he exactly gets mentally prepared, and you don't really want to know, but it involves shedding a few pounds. Nikolai Kiergaard in the Vortec car number 63, lining up alongside him is Ben Hinchley. A bit of a disappointing quali for him, I suppose he would have him say. Cameron Daz, we heard from after qualifying. He said he made a few mistakes in qualifying. In fact, here is that qualifying where he did say that he made a few mistakes.
I didn't expect to do amazing, but I expected to do better than 8th where we ended up. But I made a couple mistakes in the last 2 laps. I think I overheated the rears a little bit as well. But yeah, I've learned from it, and I think the next wet quali we see, I'll do a lot better.
What is perhaps what do you think the secret of a good lap here at Snetterton is?
I'd say it's being on the limit. It's easy to get contempt and sort of feel like, oh, that was a pretty quick sector through that corner, but you really aren't on the limit. So it's just putting everything together and feeling like you're on the edge.
Race 1 coming up later this afternoon. What might be a good result for you?
I don't know. I'm going to be going for first place. Anything can happen at Snet, as we saw in the Autumn Trophy. Quite a lot happened between the leaders and guys in the front at the start of the races. So it's possible I can make my way up there, but I definitely think I have the pace on a few guys in front of me, for sure. So
in your mind, do you think, are you perhaps allowing yourself a bit of space to be a rookie, perhaps affording for some of those errors and mistakes that you make, and considering that Adam and James are a bit more experienced in these cars and at this track in particular, but do you think maybe you might be giving yourself a bit more of a hard time aiming for a win, which we know you can do, but what I'm saying is, you know, you're allowed to go easy on yourself, I suppose.
Yeah, of course I know I'm allowed to be easy, I guess, as a rookie, but I don't like to take that approach, and I like to approach every weekend as, you know, I want to be the pace setter and the winner, so I'll be going for it for sure, and I think it's possible.
Excellent. We'll see the charge up from P8 on the grid then, Cameron, and good luck in race number 1.
Thank you.
Cameron Daz talking to me after qualifying, saying he made a couple of mistakes, but hey ho, he is a rookie. And look who we've bumped into. It is Sam Brabham. Hello there. How are you? What are you doing here?
Really good. I'm coaching Manuel with Vortec, so I'm glad the weather's
good luck with that.
Eased off. Thank you very much.
Yes, so Sam Brabham, for those who don't know, is former Formula Ford racer. Yeah. And what's your situation with your career? Because you had to step back to sort of sacrifice your career for the family launch of the Brabham platform. How's that going?
It's going well. I mean, hopefully we're close. We're getting closer and closer. It's taken a lot longer than we fully sort of anticipated. So hopefully I'll be out in a car soon. I see things are moving in the right direction at least. So we're getting closer. I just want to get back in something. So hopefully we'll have some plans sorted for next year, and if not, then hopefully I'll be racing myself anyway.
Racing what?
I don't know yet. We'll see. GTs or maybe Porsche Carrera Cup is the plan. And then if Dad gets his deal on the way, then we might be driving something else. But at the moment, we're just not too sure what's happening. It's just trying to get the deal done and then see where we end up after that.
Total pro, not giving anything away, I suppose. Sam, well done, and at least keeping your career going, at least if not, it must be really sort of frustrating. Sorry to rub it in, but you must really be seeing all these kids with all these dreams and stuff, and you're coaching Manuel Maldonado, arguably one of the most famous but most unknown talents in Formula 3.
Yeah, he's done really well today. It's his best qualifying of the whole year, which is good. It's the first weekend I'm with him, so I'm still learning. We're getting to know each other, but he's doing a really good job, and obviously the conditions were really tricky this morning. You know, he's still young, he's still quite inexperienced, so hopefully I can lend my hand and my experiences onto him, and hopefully we'll keep working our way up the grid and go from there.
Excellent stuff. So Sam Brabham, available for hire for driver coaching and all things expert driver coaching. I don't know what to say, but I guess we'll see you on track sometime soon, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully.
Excellent. So Sam, fantastic stuff. Unusual to hear from him. Manuel, well there, getting in the zone for his first race, getting a final couple of last-minute bits of prep done with his team, and Jeremy Wahome there before his first race at Snetterton here. I'm sure he's no stranger to the Snetterton circuit, and Chase Owen did a kind of a good job, I would say. I will pretty hazard a guess to say that he would not be happy with his qualifying performance, being the kind of personality he is. He always demands perfection, and anything short of number one on a grid is not good enough, I would say. On Chase, let's say, as well. Samaya, who was recently back home racing in the Brazilian Formula 3 Championship at Sao Paulo, which was streamed live on our website, motorsport-radio.com, and I enjoyed a fantastic couple of races from him, and it's great to see him back in British Formula 3 as well. Aaron DeCamberti towards the wrong end of the grid, really, I suppose. It's always awkward saying that out loud when he's in earshot, but he's going to be one of those sorts of talents where you will be pleasantly surprised, I would say, towards the end of the season. So there you go. And Nick Vorm had a bit of a he had a bit of a crash in qualifying. I'll say that quietly because he is in earshot of me, but he completely took off the front left-hand side of the car. As you can see, it's completely repaired now, and the team have done a fantastic job for that. James Poll, this is the comments that he had to say after his first pole position in British Formula 3. And it's a debut pole position. Congratulations for James Poll.
Yeah, it feels great. Last year, again, it took quite a while for me to get my first pole, but yeah, I mean, I love these conditions. I love just drying, and when you really have to fight the car, it's just sort of my favourite. So yeah, you know, I think I drove pretty well. I got quite lucky because I put a really good lap in at the last lap. But yeah, also I need to thank the team. They made a last-minute change in the Parc Fermé, and the car felt just absolutely awesome. So yeah, big thank you to them.
What did they change?
Don't know. I honestly don't know. I was just so focused on my driving that I just didn't know.
They did something.
Yeah, they did something, and it felt good, so I just let them do that and I'll focus on the driving.
Fair enough. Well, whatever they did, well done, Carlin, again. And yeah, like you say, it was pretty intense between you and your teammates, and trading times up at the top. It seemed to just be you two all throughout the session, which started off with thunder and lightning.
Yeah, it was really good at the start. It was very wet, but visibility was quite poor. But you know, I just sort of went out and just try to get the best out of that, and yeah, it seemed to go well. So it's sort of all session. Anam and I are just doing sort of trading times, like you said. Also, Anam's extremely good in the wet, so yeah, when I sort of go into the wet, I always think he's going to be my biggest challenger. But yeah, you know, Carlin have given both of us a really good car, and yeah, you know.
So as you can see, Nick Vorm there. Nick Vorm having completely repaired the front corner of the car. Brilliant to see what an amazing job that Hill Speed with Cliff Dempsey Racing Team have done to get things back in. And you can see nice, fresh, brilliant P0 Pirelli tyres with the stickered tyres. Slicks, of course, in this championship. Nick Vorm getting some last-minute prep, and don't really want to disturb him too much, because I kind of get a feeling that I've been sort of kind of jinxing a few drivers. Don't really want to do that, but so there you go. This is the grid. Welcome to the grid, and that's the sort of access that you don't really see on the actual TV footage of the programme. You don't actually see and you can literally sense some of the nervous tension in the paddock. If you look around, different drivers have some of their different rituals. Some people like to pace up and down. Chase Owen gets himself in a little quiet space. You'll often see him literally on his own in a corner of the paddock, and people just putting on their suits now, getting their helmets ready, and you can really, it's always interesting, fascinating to see, you get a real sense of all the psychology that goes on with some of these race drivers. Sam Brabham doing some last minute training with Manuel Maldonado, who has received, I think, some unfair criticism perhaps in some online communities, let's say, but he qualified P10, he's in the top 10, and it is, to be fair, it is his first, he is a rookie, let's not forget that. And I've actually never asked him about his more famous cousin. That's because it's not really relevant to his career, to be honest. I personally always judge any driver, whether they do have a famous father or a famous cousin or famous person in the family. I always kind of judge them on their own performance anyway, so regardless of who their family are, what really matters to me is not whether they're a female racing driver, famous family name, but it's whether they're a good driver ultimately at the end of the day, female, male, whomever. But anyway, so that's the grid, and we will be back shortly with the roundup and the podium, and find out exactly what happened in this race that's about to get underway. Beautiful sunny skies and conditions here at Snetterton for race number 1 of the weekend. It's race number 7 in the championship.
This is Monday Motorsport with Lester Forbes on Motorsport Radio.
Epic action from Formula 3 from race number 1 here at Snetterton. My name's Lester. This is Monday Motorsport on Motorsport Radio. Dan Marr is here with us to sort of talk through all the action that happened here. Yes, Formula 1 was on. Yes, Indy 500 on. Yes, World Touring Cars was on. But the biggest action of the weekend was undoubtedly here at Snetterton, where the British GT Championship and Formula 3 races happened, amongst other things, amongst a vibrant support package. And so we'll get to race number 2, by the way, in Formula 3 in just a moment. But first, Dan, GT Championship, and there was an interesting qualifying session.
Yes, the British GT Championship had 2 1-hour races here this weekend. So the standard fare is you get a qualifying for GT3 AM, GT3 Pro, GT4 AM, GT4 Pro. Now, of course, the AMs will set the grid for race 1, the Pros set it for race 2. Now, the interesting thing is we've got certain silver combinations. If you want me to take the microphone whilst you look. The interesting thing is there's certain silver pairings in GT, in GT3 and in GT4. So some of the silver drivers will be in both because there's 2 silver drivers. They're both quite quick. They carry an extra bit of weight penalty. But if we just look at the table, the number 24, the Macmillan AMR car, Aston Martin V12 Vantage, set pole position for race 1, which was pretty quick, and it was an amazing qualifying session. And we saw the number 21 Macmillan AMR Aston Martin V12 Vantage of Jack Mitchell and James Littlejohn, they qualified on pole position for race 1. That was an absolutely fantastic effort from the pair of them. They qualified quite well for race 2 as well. We'll get on to race 2 in a bit, but first we had a bit of a chat with a few people on the grid for race 1. So we did speak to James Littlejohn. We also spoke to Seb Morris and Anna McKay. How do you think the Bentley's going to fit in here?
We're gonna be in a bit of a battle today. We're the slowest car on the speed tracks by a country mile. It's just the way our card gets dealt for this race. The car's very good. We're just slow down the straight, so we're gonna have to just have a clean one and battle our way through.
Well, certainly, as we saw last time out at Rockingham, we couldn't quite know what was going to happen. Let's hope this time the end result's a little bit clearer.
Yeah, hopefully we should be in for a good race. It's going to be good fun out there today, I think, and hopefully if we can stay where we are in terms of 3rd or 4th, 5th, we'll be happy with that.
Of course, race 2 grid's a similar kind of position. I suppose it's going to be not damage limitation, but trying to score some good points for both races here.
Yeah, hopefully if we get some good points, no penalty for Silverstone, we'll be all right.
Thanks, Seb. In fact, we'll keep recording, because why not? James, if you mind to get a quick word? Right, so James Littlejohn, you and Jack Mitchell start on pole position ahead of round 4. Looking quite good up front, I'd say.
I think so, yeah. I think Jack's got a little bit of pace over the other AM drivers at the start. I mean, all we can wish for is that there's no safety car. There's obviously, we're trying to build as big a gap as we can before the pit stops, and then I'll try and drive the widest Aston Martin in history to the finish.
Of course, I believe it was Jack at the start of the race at Rockingham, that fantastic stint he had on Belgium at Miller Mayer Marcas. So he showed some really good pace, and I suppose if you guys can do that again this weekend, you can certainly be on for the win, I'd say.
Yeah, well, actually, I started at Rockingham.
Oh, there you go. Right, let's edit that one out. So, James, you had a really good start. But yeah, okay, so you did, to be in all fairness though, the pair you drove superbly in the 2-hour race at Rockingham. So, it's safe to say you guys have been really going into GT3.
Yeah, I think the longer races are great for us because we can potentially build a little bit of a buffer before the pit stop. But again, the safety car issue is always something to consider. But I think you're right. The first race of the 2 1-hour race formats, we should always do quite well. We had a bit of bad luck at Alton Park in the first round, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a good result today.
Well, as long as the radiator hose doesn't go again, you guys should be in for a good result. So, thanks, James.
Thank you.
Best of luck. We'll come and speak to you after race 2 when you do start, and I won't get that one wrong this time.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Not too bad qualifying. It's going to look an interesting race with Jeanette on the first row, McLaren second row, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it will be a really interesting race and quite a close one as well. If you look at qualifying, times were pretty close. So, yeah, it's going to be good to see how the start goes and then see if Adam can settle into a rhythm and go from there. But good result on the cards, I think.
Of course, you and Adam, both of you, have been doing really well at Alton Park, and a bit of a shameful retirement in race 3 at Rockingham because I think a stone got into an intercooler or something and it sort of ruined the race for you guys. But you've been looking really competitive so far this year. I suppose trying to get a good, decent points haul around here is going to be key to maybe having a championship challenge race 1, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, Rockingham was really disappointing having a rock go through our charge cooler radiator on lap 1, which just put us straight out the race. But due to our sort of amazing result at Alton, we were still okay championship wise. So yeah, I think if we can just keep consistently scoring points throughout the year, we'll be in with a shout at the end for sure.
And of course, I'm trying to make our way off the grid. There's lots of people, as you can see, but Snetterton, it's going to be an interesting one. McLaren's very good in the straight line, but also really good, not quite so good through the corners. Jeanette is amazing through the corners, so I suppose it's going to be a very sort of tight battle throughout the course of the race. Yeah,
it's going to be toing and froing lap after lap, I think, with the gap. Obviously with the different manufacturers having strengths and weaknesses in different places on the circuit. But it's all part of the game, so we just got to deal with it as the race goes on and see where we can get to. I think take every opportunity we can get.
Well, cheers, Adam. Best of luck. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
So, Seb, quite busy in the zone, as you can expect. Adam wasn't. He was quite prepared. It was quite interesting to speak to them about the McLaren around here. And of course, James Littlejohn, who had him and his teammate Jack Mitchell had qualified on pole position for race 1, round 4 of the 2017 British GT Championship. Now, we'll get back onto that in just a little bit, I think. We've got a proper debrief as to what happened with myself and Nick Smith. So all of that is yet to come. But I believe, Lester, more Formula 3 action.
Yes, we will get to a proper, like Dan said, a debrief. Yeah, feels strange to say a debrief. But yeah, we'll be hearing from Dan and Nick Smith from the Image team and 956 Limited about what happened in race number 1 and race number 2 with a whole host of fabulous drivers. But first, it's race number 2 in British Formula 3, and the man who finished in 8th place for the reverse grid race, making his debut in British F3 this weekend, just turned 16 years old. And he's probably not that well known to many single-seater aficionados, and probably less so to people who are single-seater aficionados who aren't well versed in Formula 3 drivers. Yeah, well, anyway, 16-year-old, recently turned 16-year-old Jordan Kane, who finished 8th in race number 1, meant he was on pole position for the reverse grid race of race number 2, and that was where he stayed. Here he is on the podium celebrating a victory, his first ever victory in BRDC British Formula 3. Not just that, but on his debut weekend, a fantastic achievement. We'll catch up with Connor Jackson in the show later to get his thoughts on Jordan Kane's meteoric rise to first place. And first of all, here I am chatting to Jordan Kane, who just can't believe his luck. Jordan Kane, your debut BRDC British Formula 3 weekend. You just turned 16 years old and you've just Yeah, you just won your first race. Big smiles.
Yeah, I really can't believe it at the minute, to be honest. Yesterday we kind of struggled a bit because we knew our pace was good.
Yeah, you just won your first race. Big smiles.
But we struggled a bit in the wet. So we qualified P9 and we managed to gain a place in the race. But that race was just really trying to gauge how the racing is over here, because I haven't raced over here in cars. So that it was nice to get the first race under our belt, and then that put me on pole. So I was quite a learning curve this weekend in learning pressure and stuff like that. But
did you know when you were fighting with, I think, Chadwick at the time in race number 1, did you know that your position, what I'm asking is, were you like purposefully sort of like staying in that position because you wanted to be on pole, or was that just a coincidence?
I mean, I'm a racer at the end of the day. If I can overtake someone, I'm going to go and do it. And obviously I'm not fighting for a championship, so I didn't really need to worry about the pole. I mean, I'd like to obviously be up there in the points, but I think a win's a hefty chunk of points to take home to the team. So I just can't believe it. It's just been such a hard year last year.
Why can't you believe it? You're a great driver.
I know, but you work so hard in the off season, and I haven't raced for 10 months prior to this event because of all the financial issues with the team I was with. And you work so hard in the off season, work every day, just in the hope that you can deliver on track, and thankfully today we did.
Is it a dream come true today?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've got to say thanks to the team, because I only did one test prior to this event, and Douglas, they've got a good reputation in the series, and to take on a rookie like me who missed two rounds is I'm forever grateful for that opportunity to run with the team as good as Douglas.
Well, not much else to say really, other than congratulations.
One more thing, Harry Hayek, if you do watch this, mate, I miss ya. Hope you get better soon, and I can't wait to see you again.
Sentiments expressed by everyone here in the Formula 3 paddock. Jordan, best of luck in race number 3. I don't suppose you can really get any better apart from maybe another win. So we'll wait to see what you do in race 3.
Yeah, I don't know where we're starting on the grid, but we'll be pushing, that's for sure.
Excellent, thank you, congrats. Jordan Kane, after race number 2, his first ever victory, 16 years old, and he's won in British Formula 3. Unbelievable result, and I think that might actually be the youngest ever winner of a British F3 result. We'll have to double check, but my stats and memory banks, which isn't admittedly very good, say that it is. So well done to Jordan Kane. Race number 2 ended with Cameron Daz on the podium, again in second. Here he is. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What happened in the race?
The start was really good. I got around Jamie before turn 1. Went side by side with Jordan through turn 1, and then through turn 2, and then I had the inside for 3 that he got around, and then I was on the outside for 4, and then Callum was right there, so I kind of had to back out of the move, and I couldn't get a good enough run out of turn 7 to ever make a move on Jordan going under the bridge. So midway through the race, I decided to just back off, try and get a lap in for quali, but I couldn't get enough of a gap with Callum right behind me to really get a great lap in, so I think I'm starting 5th. But yeah, it was a good race, and the car felt the best it's felt all weekend, so I think for race 3 we'll be able to actually make up quite a few positions.
As in another win you're hoping for?
Yeah, I'll try. I mean, there's definitely some very quick guys in front of me, but I think my pace is right up there with Enam had I been in clean air, so I think it's possible.
Was you expecting the Douglas Motorsport car of Jordan Kane, with it being his debut F3 weekend, to be so quick?
I did expect him to be quick. He had some bad luck in America, I think, so I knew he had some pace. He just sort of needed some testing and so a chance to really prove how quick he was, and he did do that this race. So I expected it. Douglas has a quick car as well. Callan's proved that in previous races, so it was a really good job on Jordan's part.
Excellent. Best of luck in race number 3. I'm sure you'll be hoping for, as you've already said, another win to add to your portfolio of podiums, which I think, have you been on the podium now every single round? I think so.
You mean every race weekend?
Yeah, at Alton, Rockingham and here so far. So long may that continue, I suppose. So Cameron, well done, congrats, and we'll certainly look forward to what happens in race 3.
Thank you.
Cameron Daz, the young American racing with Jordan Kane last year in America, on the podium once again in BRDC British Formula 3. My name's Lester. This is Dan Marr co-hosting tonight's Monday Motorsport show on the pit wall at Snetterton. Ooh, that's a good thing to be doing. How lucky am I suppose. So you just heard from Cameron Daz talking to me after race number 2, and Callan O'Keefe, has to be said, he was looking a bit crestfallen. I think he thought he should have won race number 2, and here is our little chat with him. Callan O'Keefe, another podium for you. You look a little bit disappointed. You can't hide it on your face.
Yeah, I love getting pots. I love getting a bit of silverware and something to take home, but we finished third a lot of this year. Would be nice to be the top step, but obviously it's great for the team to have Jordan there. You know, the guys work so hard, and it's great to have both cars on the podium. It doesn't get much better than that. And overall, it was a really good race. You know, I made a great start from P5. Was really aggressive the first lap. Made quite a good move on Ben around the outside of turn 2, and then it's very much just follow the lead around here. And I tried to attack Cameron as much as I could to force him into a few mistakes, and there was a few mistakes there, but never really a clear opportunity. So yeah, pretty happy with it. I know we keep sticking our nose there. Eventually it's going to come. We're going to get that first win, and you know, again, it's points for the championship. It's lots of positives to take away rather than the negatives. It's just I really want that win again.
I hear you say that, but your face says something different, to be honest.
No, I'm pretty happy with it. Make no mistake. Like, if someone would said to me I would have come back after a year out and had a 100% podium record in the first 3 rounds, I probably would have taken it. You know, it's that close now that it's just getting the last few minor details from my side, and it'll come. So the good news is it's there. The good news is we keep putting ourselves at the front, even when we had a terrible Thursday, terrible Friday. We're about a second off, and we're still running in the top 4 the entire weekend. That's good. You know, it's minimizing the downside kind of thing. So that's how you win a championship. It's a long way to go, 16 rounds or 16 races, so we'll just keep chipping away, and hopefully all these third and fourths will pay dividends by the end of the year.
Certainly, and perhaps maybe you can draw some sort of consolation from the fact that Jordan did start on pole because it was a reverse grid race as opposed to an outright qualifying P1, for example.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I'm not comparing myself to Jordan, although he's my teammate. He's there to help me go quicker. I'm there to help him go quicker, and ultimately we're there to make the team do a better job. It's great for Jordan to get his first win. He's done a great job this weekend, but as you said, it's reverse grid, and yeah, there's no real answer to this question. I don't know what the correct thing is, but yeah, as I said, it's really good for the team. It's good for us to be back up here, nipping away championship points, and as I said, if he's doing it, it means I can do it too, which means we'll be on there soon.
Exactly. That was kind of my point anyway. Yeah, no, excellent. So race 3 then, you've already kind of said it. Obviously you're hoping for P1 for race number 3. We'll just say good luck, and let's hope you can do it.
Thank you very much. I'll do my very best.
Callan O'Keefe can't hide his disappointment, even though he says he's always good to chat to. Anyway, he has always got a smile on his face, and I suppose we perhaps just caught him when he was in the mindset that he probably should have. Yeah, he's a racing driver. He thinks he should have won, as did Cameron and all the other drivers as well. But another podium for him, having spent, as he said, about best part of a year out of the car. There's quite a lot of podiums so far, Callan, and I'm a double podium for Douglas Motorsport, so that's pretty good. We will get Connor Jackson's view on the races from race 2 and race 1 in BRDC British Formula 3, and next here on Monday Motorsport on Motorsport Radio, Dan Marr will be with Nick Smith reviewing all the racing and behind the scenes gossip from the British GT Championship.
But yeah, also I need to thank the team. They made a last-minute change in the Parc Fermé, and the car felt just absolutely awesome. So yeah, big thank you to them.
What did they change?
Don't know. I honestly don't know. I was just so focused on my driving that I just didn't know.
They did something.
Yeah, they did something, and it felt good. So I just let them do that, and I'll focus on the driving.
This is Motorsport Radio.
Welcome back to Monday Motorsport here on Motorsport Radio, and we're here now to digest what happened in both of the scintillating 1-hour races here at Snetterton. And I am with Nick Smith, who's going to come and join me from 956 Limited and the Image team, and just British GT experts. So, race 1, well, we've seen it. The winner, Phil Keane, John Minshaw. It's a pretty dominant performance from them, but we've got to talk about the other dominant performance, which is the number 24, which is of Jack Mitchell and James Littlejohn. Jack had a phenomenal first stint, didn't he?
It was amazing. I mean, the car took pole out of nowhere. Nobody expected that particular car to be quick. I lost a bet at Bombhole with a bloke betting on the wrong Aston Martin.
We're going to have to ask about that.
You can ask later. And yeah, he came out of nowhere, started well, and then just built a gap after knocking on for 4 seconds.
It was 11 seconds by the end of the stint.
11 seconds by the end of the stint.
By the end of half an hour.
So, and then unfortunately in the second half of the race he handed over to the co-driver, and it started to fall away a touch. But no shame in that. You're racing against some of the best drivers in Britain here.
Instead of talking about what happened with Jack Mitchell and James Littlejohn, let's hear from Jack Mitchell, find out what happened in race 1. Right, so I'm here with Jack Mitchell. Started first, an absolutely dominant first stint in the car. You managed to get, what, a 10-second, 11-second lead by the time you came into the pit lane to change over to your teammate. How did it feel just going out there, pounding around seconds faster than everyone else?
I'm not really happy with that. Yeah, our plan for that race was was with the AMs, just to try and get a really good lead to start with, get a good gap for when we come to do the driver change. So it made life a little bit easier for James when he was out in the car. But with our pit penalty we had after Rockingham, it allowed them to catch up a little bit more. But no, the Lambo guys this weekend have been really quick, and I think all of us seem to be struggling against them. But no, credit to them, they've done well, and well done to James as well for trying to hold them off. But there's not much he could do at the end of the day.
It did look a fantastic battle out there with James. We spoke to him on the grid, so I may have jinxed him, so sorry about that. But we saw Rockingham, something I'm interested about, and I'm sure our listeners are interested about. Obviously we had Rockingham, you were second in the car, weren't you? You qualified in the second session, but you qualified in the first session here yesterday. Do you know why that's varies? Do you know the regulations behind that, or is it just you choose? Or
at the first couple of rounds, it's SRO have kind of hinted that for me to start first because being less experienced with the qualifying, but with the rules it states not for this weekend but some of the other rounds, it's whoever's the quickest goes in the pro starts the pro race, and then whoever's slowest starts the AM race. But because the race has been split this weekend, I've done my qualifying for the AM race, so I had to start that one.
Oh, okay. I was wondering because it was just something a bit different that we saw, but it was an interesting race out there. I suppose the tyres, a few people were saying the tyres got quite warm. It's very warm out there today and yesterday, in fact. How did that feel in the car? Did the tyres feel all right? Obviously they were fresher when you got in the car for the first time, because it was hinted 4 new tyres I believe you had on the car as well, wasn't it?
We didn't have brand new tyres for that one. They were fairly new. No, didn't. We kind of hoping to save them for the last race, but no, with our car we kind of get a little bit more tyre drop off because we're a little bit heavier than some of the other cars. With the silver ballast we've got an extra 60 kilos, so it doesn't really help with the tyres throughout the race, but we managed to get a good job and kind of keep on the track and towards the end.
And the second race is going to be another competitive one. You don't start on pole for that one. We're still starting off there or thereabouts. Snetterton's not the easiest place to overtake, but we saw some stellar moves being made out there in the GT race. So if you keep your nose out of trouble, I suppose you can get a good result, maybe even manage not to get any of that success penalty, pit box penalty for the Silverstone round in a couple of weeks' time as well.
Yeah, I think the next race is going to be really hard for us because we all know the pros out there are really quick, and we're struggling a little bit with the silver ballast, but no, James is going to do a good job, best he can. I think hopefully we can kind of stay close to them, and then when we go to the driver change when we're out with the AMs, hopefully we can kind of claw some places back there. But it's going to be a long race, so we'd have to see what happens.
It'll be a long race, but it'll be interesting to see, especially with the pace that you showed. You at times 1.5 seconds, maybe 2 seconds faster than everyone else out on circuit. So if you can keep that up in race 2, who knows what can happen. But thank you very much, Jack. Best of luck for race 2.
Nice, thank you.
So there we heard from Jack Mitchell as to what happened in the first race here at Snetterton, and the interesting thing is, as he said, didn't start on fresh tyres. It were used tyres which used in qualifying, and the performance, they said, is quite a high deg circuit here. They get to a point they'll start to fall off. We saw that with the Aston Martin, which just seemed to really struggle, but of course with the 2 silver drivers in the car, which then meant they carry an extra 60 kilograms of weight on top of the relatively heavy mass of the Aston Martin V12 Vantage GT3, it all adds up into little bits, and at the end, this Lamborghini, which has been competitive all year, has just been shown that they just couldn't quite keep on it. But it was a fantastic defensive drive from James, though.
It was an example of how to do it, and starting on the used tyres.
Can I just say, sorry, what a waste of champagne. Anyway, carry on.
Oh no, you can't waste the bubbles. Starting on used tyres, if they could hold the tyres together, could have been a masterstroke.
Yeah.
Because once you put a heat cycle through a tyre, it cures in a different way, and it offers its grip more readily when you start the race, which could be where that 11-second lead came from. But of course, you put cycle through it, you've taken away some of the rubber. There's not as much there to do the business with. And then the Lamborghini, notoriously soft on its tyres. My word, look at the back end of that Ginetta.
That was a 63, which was involved Sam Chapman, who was involved with an incident with Will Tregurtha in race 2. And we will get onto that in just a few minutes' time. But to quickly go through race 1 as well, as you say, the Lamborghini, very good.
Yeah, good in its tyres, well balanced, and this is a technical circuit. There's a very big straight at the back of it, a very big straight at the front of it, but in between it's mixed with corners that require balance and poise. I thought the front engine rear-wheel drive layout of an Aston Martin would really suit this circuit, but it turned out that the mid-engine was the way to go. And when you're looking at mid-engine, the first name on your list is going to be the Demon Tweaks car. It's going to be Phil Keane and John Minshaw.
And you mentioned Phil Keane. We caught up with him after the first race. We're very happy, Phil Keane. Great drive from him. Here's what he had to say to us. Phil Keane here, winner of round 4 of the British GT Championship here at Snetterton Race 1. An absolutely fantastic drive, but James Littlelon just didn't make it easy for you, did he?
No, he drove fairly, and we had a good battle, so it was good fun.
Just something I want to ask before, did you start on used fresh tyres, or are you leaving them for the second race?
No, we have some better tyres for the second race, so they were John's tyres from his first stint. So I think we're in pretty good shape for the second race.
It was looking very interesting, of course. It was about 11 seconds before the pit stops happened. Jack Mitchell stayed out for, I think, 2 extra laps. You guys came in early. You elected to come in early. I suppose that was try and get your pace out of the car. We saw 2 tenths under the lap record that you set here last year. So you've been going quickly all weekend here, which I think is great to see.
Yeah, no, the car's very good. I mean, we're similar pace to what we were last year. I don't know what's happened to the Astons and everyone else. They seem to have slowed down a little bit. I'm not sure why. So, we'll see what race 2 brings.
And of course, it was an interesting race. You had a very close battle with James Littlejohn all the way through it. He was so defensive through that. How difficult is it to overtake in that scenario, especially around here?
I think when his tyres were a bit newer, a bit fresher, it makes it more difficult. But as soon as they get to a certain point and they drop off, only needs a little mistake and I can get my nose up the inside. So, it was good. I had plenty of good gap to Sam, so plenty of time to mess around with James. It was good fun.
Of course, Barwell 1-2, fantastic result for you guys. It's where the car should be, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, this is our circuit. We the Lambos always goes well around here, and it's one of the stronger circuits for us. So I'm sure when we get to Silverstone and Brands, it'll be a different story.
You start at round 2 or round 5 on pole position, race 2 on poles. I suppose your hopes must be high for getting a great start like Jack Mitchell did in that one.
Yeah, I mean, we just need a clean getaway and try and build a gap ready for the pit stop penalty.
Well, it's going to be interesting. How long is the pit stop penalty for you guys?
I think it's a good question. I'm pretty sure it's 10 seconds.
Well, that could make all the difference, couldn't it?
It could, yeah. So we need a gap, really. I mean, the other Lambo also has a penalty, so we just need to pull away from the cars in third and then go from there.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one, I suppose, as well. You might mindful of Silverstone in a couple of weeks' time, a 3-hour race, pit stop penalty. If you win or get a good result in this one, you'll get a pit stop penalty for Silverstone, which still a 3-hour race, so it's going to hamper you less, but it's still a bit more difficult with the tightness in the field.
Yeah, but you need to take the points while you can. You don't know what's going to happen. I think to make a decision based on the next race isn't the right thing to do. If the points are available this race, we'll take them and we'll worry about Silverstone when we get to Silverstone.
Well, Barwell 1-2 in this one. Who knows what can happen in the next one, starting 1-2. So best of luck. Thank you, Phil.
Cheers. Thank you.
Phil Keane there, and race winner once again. 3 race wins this year. They've got to be a sure bet for the championship, them and John Minshaw.
I can't remember in recent years anybody winning 3 out of 4 and not winning. Well, anybody winning 3 out of 4, let alone doing it and then not winning the title. They've been in line for the title at Donington Park for as long as I can remember, with Porsche, with BMW, and now they're looking strong with the Lamborghini as well. So I wouldn't want to bet against them. I really wouldn't want to bet against them.
No, I certainly wouldn't. And let's just quickly recap GT4, a fantastic race-long battle with the number 51 Lanham Racing car and the number 55 HHC Motorsport Racing Ginetta. They're both Ginetta G55 GT4s. The only difference is the fact that the Lanham car is that 2016 spec car and the HHC Motorsport one is a 2017 spec, so it has traction control, ABS, and in fact we've got not just one interview, but two interviews. Let's hear from the people in second, Alex Reid and David Pissard. Alex Reid second in the first race here at Snetterton. What a fantastic battle you guys had with the 55 out there.
Yeah, it was pretty tough. The guys at the start, it was all pretty close, but unfortunately he just got ahead of me at the start. He pulled a bit of a gap, I tried to keep with him, and I think to a certain level we were at the same pace. It was really, really difficult because the tyres were slipping around quite a bit. We find it difficult to keep grip and keep traction, and I think my main job was just to stay ahead of that McLaren, and that's what I did. And fortunately we came in and we came out just ahead of them, but unfortunately they got us just at the end, probably because they had better tyres than us. But to be honest, it was an amazing race, and let's hope race 2 is just as good.
Were you expecting the McLarens to not be on touch as much? They didn't seem to be as competitive as some were expecting them to be.
I think we all expected them to be better than they were, but it's obvious that BOP has changed from last year, so they aren't quite as good as they were before, but they were still pretty, really good in the straights. So I think for us the main thing to concentrate on was just getting that power out of the corners onto the straights and making sure that we got that initial push, and that's what we did.
Of course you guys don't have the upgrade kit for 2017 on there. Do you think that that's helped your early season results?
Yeah, I think so, because the traction control and the ABS is good and all that, but it's only really good for the wet. In the dry, you don't really use either of them, so to be honest there wasn't really much benefit to having them, but with the way the BOP went, I think it actually helped us a little bit. So I don't want to say it was worse, but I'm happy we stayed as we did.
Race 2 is going to be another good one, isn't it?
Yeah, we're starting in P4, so let's hope it goes well.
Great race out there though, wasn't it?
Yes, it's very close. Yeah, very close out there. I knew we were going to come out in the lead, sort of with the pit stop penalties from Rocky, etc. Saw Stuart was closing on me, but I think I had the legs on him in the right places to gap him effectively. But fair play to Stuart, he made a mega move on me into Nelson, sort of utilised the GT3 traffic. One of the Bentleys slightly put me offline, but no, clean move, mega move, and I had the pace to stay with, but it just gapped me enough that I couldn't quite stay with him to challenge him again. McLaren lunged me as well into Nelson. We had a bit of side-to-side contact, bit of grass tracking, but managed to stay ahead of him for that one as well.
Of course, you and Stuart had a fantastic battle throughout the stint, your stint, the half an hour you were in the car. It's been interesting to see the differences between your Ginetta without the ABS, without the traction control, and the ones with it, and it just seems to have helped. I suggest with Alex as well, your early season results, it seems to have just sort of helped you that a little bit. Yeah,
we did a bit of scouting at the British GT Media Day. We didn't do it, but asking around the paddock, we were seeing that with the BOP, that the 2017 car was actually slower. So we had kind of hedged our bets. We knew that the 2016 car is a proven championship winner, so we were effectively ride out the first 2 rounds, see how it all plays out, and then make a decision from there. We're happy with where we are. We're happy with the performance of the car, so that's where we've stuck, and I think it was the right decision.
Race 2 is going to be another interesting one. It's cooled off a bit. It might be a bit warmer later on in the day, though. How difficult was it with the heat?
I noticed it in the final 2 laps specifically. I don't know whether it's just that psychological thing that is the final 2 laps, but I was okay most of the stint, but yeah, it was just those final two laps, and I could see, so as the fuel was coming down, I was getting quicker and quicker and quicker, so I was kind of more motivated to go faster and faster. Put a lot of training in outside race weekend, so I'm pretty happy with how I'm feeling at the moment.
Well, of course, awesome part. Last time we spoke to you, you moved up quite far from the grid. Next time we spoke to you, you got a win. Might happen again today. Best of luck. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you. So there you go. Alex and David very nicely summarising the differences, how much they enjoyed that battle. It was so close throughout the field, and as we saw at Rockingham last time out, the GT4 battle was, it wasn't more than 2 or 3 car lengths for 3/4 of the race. It was just cat and mouse how they did it.
GT4's nearly always a tight battle, but this was a particularly special one to watch. They were trying all they could, and they were fighting in every way they could. It's a perfect example of age over experience, youth over experience, because we have the younger car with the ABS versus the older car without. We also have the older crew in the older car and the very, very young lineup in the HHC car.
And you can't exactly call Alex and David old, because Alex is only 2021 and then David's not too far behind that either. So it's how young the drivers have become now that we say that's old.
Yeah, we've got drivers in this championship that weren't born at the turn of the millennium.
That's frightening. They're the same sort of age as my sister, and that sort of really upsets me. The number 30 had an interesting race weekend, actually. Let's have a bit of a look inside. You can see modern GT3 machinery, just how much carbon fibre and all the rest of it they've got in there. I think this is a bit trick. I mean, that's what it'd be like to sit in one of these GT3 cars. Imagine doing that for half an hour or an hour or two or however many hours in any race series that accepts these GT3 cars. You know, just imagine sitting there and driving for such a long period of time. But we saw this had a relatively good race in race number 4, round 4. They finished in 4th place, which was a really good change for them, because the first couple of rounds they've struggled, the pairing of Lee Mole and Ryan Ratcliffe. Let's quickly cut to what they had to do in race number 5, round 5 of the championship. They did end up 8th with a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits. So we'll gloss over that one, shall we? Track limits, actually, before we go on to race 2, were the order at the weekends, because from the very first session in free practice we saw track limit warning, track limit warning, track limit warning, and for the first time I think I've ever seen at a motor race, we had stop and go penalties in practice sessions for exceeding track limits. And as you can see, the number 42 had an interesting race. From the very first lap in race number 1, it had contacts, and that sort of was under investigation. I don't think anything was dealt with. And then in race 2, I believe it was a gearbox issue which caused that car to slow and be out of retirement. In fact, only did 12 laps, pulled over. I believe it was gearbox issues with the 42, wasn't it?
It was, unfortunately, gearbox issues that put paid to our second race, we had a replacement gearbox between overnight, and for some unknown reason we sprang a bit of an oil leak, and rather than risk a very expensive gearbox, we decided it was better to err on the side of caution.
Well, I suppose you'll get it fixed for Silverstone. Reliability is going to be a big one there.
Reliability is a huge one there. We already have plans afoot to ensure that all the major components are fully serviced and replaced before that event, because, as you say, it's an important one for us.
And of course the 24 had a fantastic first race, didn't they?
Yeah, Jack was very, very pleased with his pole position. Got more out of the car than perhaps we thought was able, and he drove a fantastic stint, pulled away from the rest of the guys, and took a little bit of a margin into the pit stop period. Unfortunately, we had a 5-second penalty on the pit stops for coming third at the previous round, which is fine, which meant that James was a little bit closer to Phil when he came back out. And the Lambos were very quick this weekend. Obviously, we're carrying an extra 60 kilos of ballast for a silver pairing, and over time that paid, and we just ran out of tyres to keep them behind them, I'm afraid.
And race 2, we'll start on race 2 now. Actually, they had a bit of a spin. It was a bit of a struggle for you guys in race 2, I suppose, wasn't it? They had a spin in the first lap at Pecorum, and
James was a bit keen to try and keep up with the front boys from where he was in his qualifying, and admitted that he just dropped a wheel off and it turned the car around. Lady Luck then sort of came back to us with the pace car soon after Jack took over, and he drove a stormer towards the end, putting in some really good lap times, and we just didn't quite have enough to get past the Bentley at the end, which would have been nice.
But the pace that these guys have shown over the first 4 or 5 rounds of the season, it's been fantastic to see the way they've developed, and I suppose you've got to be going into Silverstone quite confident.
Yeah, very much so. Silverstone is a circuit that we know suits the Aston. The guys are very much on it now. We've got used to engineering the car with the extra weight, although it does pose a bit of a problem for us. Certainly on a longer race, brakes are going to start to become an issue, and we need to take that into consideration with the setup. But it's always been our intention intention to showcase 2 silver drivers and show the world what they can do, which is what we're able to do.
And of course, you don't see much of that in GT3. It's quite a popular combination in GT4, but GT3, I suppose it's a bit more of an unproven concept, but it is showing to be very competitive.
Yeah, it is. I mean, traditionally this is a Pro-Am championship and very much sort of gentleman driver alongside a hot shoe young lad, which has worked really well. As you say, we've rung the changes a little bit on that and put 2 younger guys of proven ability together. Obviously the 60 kilos extra for the silver makes engineering the car a little more difficult, but when we're able to get it right, they're able to show what they can deliver.
And the extra 60 kilos isn't going to be helping. I know I was speaking to Jack earlier. He was saying about the tyres got a bit warm because obviously it was a very, very hot day here today, and it was yesterday. And I suppose with the slightly used tyres, Nick suggested about the curing them was a little bit easier on them, but just getting later on in the race, the Aston Martin with extra 60 kilos, I suppose it sort of didn't.
Yeah, I mean, basically you're asking a lot of the sidewall of the tyre because it's having to support the weight mid-corner. The lateral forces on the tyre are increased. It's obviously a new tyre for this year, the DHD. So again, a lot of the data that we've had previously hasn't translated straight across. So we've had to learn that very quickly. We've had to engineer the car in a slightly different way to try and make the weight to our advantage rather than disadvantage. But the laws of physics are the same. You will always work the tyres harder, and you've got more mass to stop and accelerate. So yeah, it's a handicap, but then it's designed to be.
And I was just going to say, in fact, I think Leicester's getting quite upset now, so let's leave that there.
Mr. Packer's L'Oreal.
Yeah, so just remind us, what's your name and role in the team?
Andrew Dean, team manager.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. Thank you for that.
Hi, this is Nick Hamilton, and this is Motorsport Radio.
Super fresh with a dope style. Motorsport Radio.
Let's go.
This is Motorsport Radio.
Hi, I'm Callan O'Keefe, and this is Motorsport Radio.
You can have it till you can't take no more.
Welcome back to Monday Motorsport. I'm Dan Marr. I'm here with Nick Smith. We're discussing round 5 of the British GT Championship as the teams pack away. We're moving on to Silverstone in a couple of weeks' time for the dual 3-hour race. We'll have to talk about that in a few minutes, but first of all, race 2 still to discuss. We briefly spoke about it with the 24 this car. James Littlejohn got a little bit excited, quoting Andrew, the team manager, and it's got fuel in it apparently, according to the sign. And he just sort of dropped it. That put paid, but he still got a decent race, so you'll have to go around Leicester because they're putting the carpet away. There we go. See, we're just always getting in people's way. That's just what we do. We're journalists. So anyway, as you giggle to yourself because you know the pain all too well, Nick. Speaking of Aston Martins, it was a shock from the number 1. Lady Luck had finally given them a kiss. They took the victory because Lady Luck thought, well, I've had enough of the 33 winning. It was a too short pit stop was the issue. Drive-through penalty, lost a whole host of time, and in the end they would only finish 6th, which, I mean, the only consolation I can come out with is they don't have a pit stop penalty, but by all accounts the Aston Martin, the number 1, finally got its break. Johnny Adam broke the British GT win record as well.
And I finally got a break. I've been tipping that car since the start of the season, and I've been made to look like a fool all season long. But yeah, there's rules there for a reason. It was a simple rule. It's easy to measure. The rule was broken. The penalty was given. The penalty was applied. It happened to the number 31 Bentley in race 1 as well. Yep. They got penalised for a too short pit stop with a time penalty off, which cost them a number of places.
And then they got penalised in race 2 for being for Seb Morris basically doing his best Guy Smith impression. Had you not seen it?
I hadn't, no.
Okay, so breaking news to Nick Smith, the one extra person viewing. The number 21, let's recap. So the very start of the race, put your minds back a few weeks ago. It's Italy, it's Monza, it's boiling hot. Guy Smith trying to take the lead, finds an Italian car to the side of him, doesn't really realise. He gets a bit skittish and causes 16 cars to crash coming up towards the first chicane at Monza. Now, that didn't happen here. All that happened is Seb Morris moved over. As soon as the lights dropped, Seb Morris moved over, went into the side of the 21, almost did a Schumacher, but worked. Went in, basically nudged the concrete and the metal guardrail, which you would have seen as we were stood up on the guardrail earlier, and then shoved it, and then got all the way out to the side of the grass. The 21 did continue. Seb Morris and that car lost a whole load of time. Callum McLeod got a whole load of time. He was up into 4th. It was a great run from him. But Seb Morris then duly got a penalty for basically shoving the Ferrari into the pit wall. They didn't come out with much damage, but what goes around comes around, and I suppose Matt Griffin might be giggling. Of course, look what happened last time out when we were sat talking to Rick Parfitt, and he was saying, well, they made contact with us, we can get out of it, and they got given a penalty. Drive-through penalty was given, fair enough. We'd seen the replay, I'm sure, race control team, everything, but that's what happened basically, so that's why Seb Morris had a bit of a struggle. But obviously, yeah, let's get out of the way because the car's going to be moving. So I'm just moving our esteemed producer, Mr. Forbes, out of the way. This is the 100 which took the victory in GT4, and whilst it's making a lot of sound and as it moves away, in fact, let's hear from the drivers of the car, Kieran Haggerty and Sandy Mitchell. Another race 2 win here. You guys must like it.
Yeah, we seem to be able to get some good results here with obviously a win last year and then a win and a third this year, which is really good. Great points haul, which puts us right back in the championship again after a tough round 1. So yeah, really happy with that.
And of course, we saw the 55 in the barrier with Will Tregerth. In fact, we spoke to him just a few minutes ago. So obviously, with people around you also getting into trouble, do you think good job you got the troubles out early on in the season?
Yeah, it's all about being consistent in this championship, and we had a bad round 1 and they've had an off today, so it all sort of usually evens out in the end. So yeah, unlucky for them because they were really, really fast all weekend. But yeah, looking forward to Silverstone now.
Of course, Kieran, Silverstone, the 3-hour race is going to be an interesting test for the McLaren. It's still a relatively new car. It's been proven over the course of a year, but a 3-hour race is tough for anything, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough race at Silverstone, with it being a 3-hour, but I think with the reliability sorted this year, I think we should have a good one. It's going to come, a lot of it's going to come down to strategy there, and with minimum pit stops and things like that, it's going to be a real good fight.
And of course, there's no European GT4 series to go and play with now, so it makes your life a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think so. It's just going to be a nice clean race, racing with people that you know on track, you know what they're going to do. There's no surprises, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be an interesting one with the weather. We know you guys have got to get a flight to catch, so best of luck. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. So that was Sandy Mitchell and Kieran Haggerty, winners of race 2 here at Snetterton. And there's some stuff blowing away, so I'm going to have to put that back on. But they did the same last year. They won in the second race here. So at Snetterton, it was a great result for them. It was a great drive by them, and again, the ones that we've been tipping, and they finally got their break.
Yes, I mean, this car, it signalled its intent last year, and it's just been stopped. It's been blocked at every turn, really. But now that they've finally got their chance.
That never sounds nice, does it?
Probably taken about £1,000 off the value of the car, that. Yeah, it was just the run that we've always known that they could turn out. And they finally got the opportunity. It really does help, as I expected with the GT4 cars, the balance and poise of the mid-engine rear-wheel drive setup suited the conditions later in the day.
Of course. And McLaren had success, Ginetta not quite so. We did mention the 63, which had contact with the number 55, which is the HSC Motorsport car. And in fact, championship contenders, their championship contenders, the number 100, so too are the young pairing of Will Tregerth and Stuart Middleton. The issue is that for them, though, they had a bit of a coming together with one of the Ginettas, the 63s we keep mentioning, and I'm not going to explain it. I'm actually going to catch up Will Tregerth, who mentioned what happened. Let's let him explain what happened. It's been an interesting weekend. Let's talk about race 1 first. Such a great battle with you and the number 51, number 51 Landon Mason car.
Yeah, it was really good. We managed to get the jump on them at the start and then build a good gap, so that was pretty key because we had that 10-second pit stop penalty from Rockingham. So yeah, we managed to pull away from them, and they did jump back at us in the pit stop, but Stuart managed to pull off a really good move near the end of the race, so that was unbelievable, to be honest. So yeah, I was really happy with the first race, especially with that penalty, and it gave us another one for the next race, but yeah, as you can kind of see, it didn't end so well. We were really fast. We got the fastest lap in the lap record in GT4, but unfortunately I made a bit of a mistake and kind of ended our day.
So just talk us through what happened, because I gather that you were coming through up towards the final corner and just got a bit of a twitch on the rear end. Yeah, well,
the front-running GT4 cars were running through Corham, going around the outside of the back markers in GT4, and the marbles started closing in to the inside of the track, and everyone started checking up, and to be honest, I lost the back end, overcorrected a bit, and the car pointed towards the curb and nailed the brakes as quick as I could, and unfortunately I made contact with the team hard car. It wasn't anything intentional really, but yeah, and it broke the front left steering arm, or damaged it, and going into the first corner, the front left wheel just went left hand down and the right hand wheel didn't really do much, so yeah, this wasn't really the best, but definitely lessons to be learnt, and the car's really fast, so we'll see what happens at Silverstone.
Well, of course, it's as long as to hear that you're all right, but obviously the form you had, obviously you won at Rockingham, you won the first race here, so I suppose you guys got to be looking at maybe the championship contention for the rest of the year.
Well, that's definitely what we're looking at. I mean, I think we're still in the championship lead after that DNF. I think Optimum had a DNF at where was it, Rockingham last year as well, so it can be done, and yeah, we'll be looking forward to it. It's such a great experience, and I've just really enjoyed being in the championship, so yeah.
Of course, next time out, the 3-hour race at Silverstone on the Grand Prix Loop. Have you ever raced on the Silverstone Grand Prix Loop before? Or?
No, I've only raced on the national track, so the GP track will be certainly a good experience. I've tested on the international loop, the I think it's the southern bit of the track, and that was really, really good. So we'll see. I hope we'll go well.
And of course, it's the 3-hour race, the longest race, the big dual events in the British GT calendar, so I suppose for you two as well. It's going to be an interesting test of stamina, driving for longer periods. The weather could yet play a mix into it, who knows?
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, Silverstone, from what I've looked at, seems to have rained most years, so looking at it will definitely be interesting. I'm really looking forward to the track. I mean, as I said, I've not been around there before, so it will definitely be a new experience, and I think that me and Stuart can definitely push for a win there.
It's an interesting question, actually, is obviously you've never driven it before. Do you use stuff like simulators to actually prepare and to get used to the car on the circuit, or...?
Yeah, I do. I do quite a lot, and to be fair, actually, I think once you know the track, you can just kind of tune into it and kind of get used to it. I do quite like not having as much experience around somewhere, because that makes it kind of a bit more rewarding when you do well, because then you're like, well, look, we've done well here, or we can do it anywhere really. So that's kind of pushed us on from Rockingham and Alton to here.
Well, it's certainly going to be an interesting one. I'm sorry to see the state of the 55, but you're going to bounce back from it, and it's going to be another interesting race in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, thank you. Will Jagurtha there, bless him, he seemed very upset at the accident. It was good to see that he was okay. It was a heavy impact, but it's not going to put pay to their championship success, but it's going to put a bit of a dent in it, I suppose, isn't it?
It is. You can't afford to lose too many points in a championship like this, but there are multiple rounds to the championship. That is a strong lineup with a proven package, so they could fight back. What I'd hate to see is that they lose the title by a point at the final round.
Of course.
They'll come home to roost.
Of course, but we have actually gained an extra round of the 2017 championship, whilst we see the number 100 being put back. Actually, here's a question I always want to know. I don't suppose we can ask them because they're busy putting the car away, but how do the drivers in that car then get out of the car because it's that tight?
9 times out of 10 they push it in. I'm wondering that question myself. Although the McLaren has strange door arrangement, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So they might get lucky.
Yeah.
But usually they'll be pushed on from the tail lift.
Okay, let's go and ask. Sorry, can I quickly ask, how does the driver get out of that car now he's trying to drive it in? Or is...
Very, very challenging. You have to then get out the window. You have to basically climb backwards out the window to do it. So it's not easy. There's no space.
It's why you tend not to do it, I suppose.
I'm not the perfect person for it, but these all skinny mechanics are okay for it.
Well, thank you very much. Name?
That's all right. Grant Seabuck.
Thank you very much, Grant. Thank you very much. So there you go. They basically have to climb. How do you do it? In through the window. Can you see why Leicester recruited me now?
Yeah, I can. I really don't fancy that. I mean, you know that my day job when I'm not being a photographer and British GT pundit, I'm a truck driver. Yeah. I'm used to loading things on tail lifts at height, and I do not fancy driving that much car at that level.
No, and I also didn't realise this car was here. This is the Optimum Motorsport. This is the Audi GT3. Obviously, we saw the 24 Hours of Nürburgring this weekend. The Audi R8 GT4 was racing for the first time, which we could well see in British GT next year. And just to reiterate, if you like the look of this car and you've got 20 odd grand a weekend to spend, then there are interesting ways of going racing. This car's available. And it would be great to see this car back out on the GT paddock, the British GT paddock. And it would just be good. So if you want to go racing and you've got a lot of money to spend on a really quick way of going racing, give Optimum a call.
That car is just here to taunt us, because that car was built to compete in this championship last year, and it withdrew after Silverstone, I believe, and it's now gone after Michelin Le Mans Cup. But it's the beauty of a GT3 car. You buy your GT3 car to race in British GT, and you can race it anywhere.
Like in LMP3 and in GT4 now.
Yeah, I mean, the LMP3, you mentioned a good point there. GT3 racing is becoming expensive now. I mean, you're looking 350,000 euros for a car like that, up to over €500,000 for a Ferrari, whereas a P3 car is cost capped at just over 200,000. It's a cheaper way to go racing, and it's faster.
Well, we won't go on to the semantics of cost, because this is still the British GT Championship. We're still here to talk about the racing here. So, let's just reiterate. That's here, and there we go, that was something a bit new. So we've mentioned obviously the McLarens, we mentioned what's been going on in both races here, and just a bit of sort of upkeeping news. So first of all, big news, we're getting an extra round of the championship. Spa now is going to be 2 1-hour races, not 1 2-hour race, and I also found out why they do the hour-long races, like for example here, and that's because there isn't enough garages, and the championship organisers don't like it that there aren't dedicated garages to refuel. So that's why here we get 2 1-hour races, 2 1-hour races now at Spa. We've had a couple of garages seconded from us by the race organisers there for the Fun Cup 25 hours. So we're not going to be able to have those races, which is a shame, but still 2 1-hour encounters makes it easier for the likes of the HHC Motorsport boys to get those extra points back. So it makes a little bit more breathing space, I suppose, for the teams, but
it does, and we tend to find at Spa that if a team's going to have an accident, it's going to have it early in the race. So if you do have your incident, you can then get the second hour back with the new format. It's a shame that we're not getting the 2 hours that we've always had at Spa.
Well, not always had it though. We've sometimes had those 2 1-hour races. So
yeah, but you can understand it. Last year we had over 100 Volkswagen Beta likes take the start of the 25-hour race. It was a properly impressive sight watching them climb Eau Rouge.
But lucky number actually.
You need the space to park them, and British GT there, whilst it's a big championship for us, to the Fun Cup, it's just a support.
Yeah, they're literally just a paying support. You saw that, number 14. If you do want to get in touch, you've got to say something to us. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at msportradio, or in fact to myself at Damar14. Nick Smith, what's your Twitter handle?
I've gone for the obvious one. I'm at the Image Team.
There we go. And Lester Forbes is
at Lester Forbes.
Well, there you go then, that's nice and simple. So we're going to round out here at Snetterton. We're moving on to the Blue Ribbon, the 3-hour Silverstone race in a couple of weeks' time. Right, we're not doing predictions, because whenever we do that, I've said that all day and I've jinxed drivers. You've jinxed drivers all season like I have. So who's not going to win at Silverstone?
Not going to win?
Yeah, because that's semantic, obviously.
You put me on the spot there. I was thinking of predictions. Everybody's not going to win because it's going to rain.
Because it's a Silverstone 3 hours. GT4 cars in the top 10?
Yes, quite possibly, actually. Quite possibly, because we're a little thin on the ground for the GT3 cars.
But there are rumours that we're going to have extra GT3 entrants as we normally do at Silverstone, and a few returning manufacturers. So could that be that the Optimum Motorsport car they're packing away here might only be here on show today, but in 2 weeks' time, 2 fully laden extra British GT drivers? Could we see McLaren back? Could we see BMW back? Who else could we see?
It's anyone's guess. We've always had additional entries for the Silverstone round, but that's because in the past the Silverstone round has preceded the Blancpain Endurance Series at Silverstone.
Like Spa does for the Spa 24, which is why we get Mercedes will probably enter a couple of cars there, for example.
It is, and it's a good way to go and get data, especially now that the entire suite of SRO championships are running on the same tyre.
Should we stop leaning on their equipment? Oh, there you go.
Wait for us. Especially now they're running on the same tyre as the rest of the SRO championships. It's better to gain data, but we're late in the year compared to the rest of the SRO suite of championships now. So we may not pick up that many entries. But it's a Formula 1 circuit, and there is an appeal of racing at a Formula 1 circuit. It's why we get more entries for Silverstone, and it's why we get more entries for Spa.
Yeah, and we're going to see there is a capacity of, I think, 56 entrants on the full Grand Prix circuit. Have you got any final words for us, Nick?
I'm just going to say I'm looking forward to Silverstone immensely, and I shall see you there.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you for joining me. Nick Smith of the Image Team and 956 Limited. I'm Dan Marr, and you're listening to Monday Motorsport, and we're going to throw back to Lester Forbes.
Hey, brother. Hey, going.
This is Motorsport Radio.
Super fresh with a dope style.
Motorsport Radio.
Let's go.
This is Monday Motorsport. I'm Lester. This is Motorsport Radio. Thank you very much for tuning in and partaking in our live stream. And if you have any comments about tonight's programme, about the British GT Championship or Formula 3, or indeed any of the action that happened over the weekend, then do get in touch with us. It's at MSport Radio on Twitter, Motorsport Radio on Facebook, or you can just email us hello@motorsport-radio.com. Connor Jackson from the Checkered Flag website and podcast extraordinaire, podcast host, in fact, is I suppose he's kind of a rival, really, but he's here anyway, and we're literally sat on a bench at the end of a very hot, boiling, sunny weekend at Snetterton, where it's actually started to rain, as is the case usually here in England. Connor, hello, welcome. Thank you once again for joining us to talk about some Formula 3 action.
Oh, it's good to be back, Lester. I will say to all the viewers that I'm regretting a lot picking this bench as a option for sitting down, because, as you say, it has started to rain and the wind is definitely in quite a lot. But it has been a bright and sunny day, and it's been some spectacular F3 action on track today. We've seen obviously the wins from Jordan Kane and Enam Ahmed in race 2 and race 3, and of course Ahmed has had a very good weekend so far, winning race 1 as well. So it's been a pretty good weekend for the Carlin team, but we'll have to see how well he goes in the future rounds.
Indeed, yes. Race number 1 was on pole position. It was James Pull in his first F3 pole, and I think we mentioned that earlier. So well done, congrats to James. But it was a drying track, and I likened it earlier to one of the more sort of traditional classic Formula 1 qualifying sessions, in that it was a drying track. Whoever was over the line the latest without making any mistakes was usually way high up, and I think James Pull managed to pull off a pole position, yeah.
Indeed. As you say, when it comes to qualifying, it was a case of whoever came across the line last benefited, and that really was the case for people like Ben Hinchley and Toby Sowery, who both failed to improve on their final lap times, and thus was started up, I think, down in 6th and 7th on the grid. Correct me if I'm wrong, obviously. Which, for them, definitely hampered the rest of their weekend. Sowery, of course, made great strides throughout the race, and I was very impressed with him. But Hinchley never really featured towards the front of the grid, and that was largely due to the fact that he relies quite a lot on strong qualifyings, and this really was a weekend where he's fallen back in terms of the overall standings. So, as you say, everything came down to that qualifying session in that on those drying conditions, and it really benefited the Carlins, and it really benefited Enam Ahmed.
Well, there was 3 races and 2 races on the Sunday here today. It literally is. We've literally chosen the worst time to do this review because it's starting to get really windy and all my notes are blowing away. So thank you, Connor, for assisting me with being a paperweight. Thank you. But race number 2. I asked this to James earlier, to James Pull, and perhaps it's true. Tell me what you think. It's difficult, really, really, really difficult to overtake at Snetterton, which doesn't usually lead for great racing. And I think, as we kind of saw in, I think it was race number 2, in parts anyway, but he knew pretty much as soon as he'd dropped down to this is race number 1 anyway, he dropped down from pole position into second. He sort of knew then that he was stuck, that there was no coming back for him.
Well, as you say, Snetterton is a very flat track, and it's one that is very sort of similar width all the way around. It's been renovated obviously in the last couple of years, and while the renovations have helped in certain aspects, the point of the track is it's not incredibly wide, and unless you can get a good run on one of the straights, there's very little opportunity to overtake. The 2 long straights we do have lead into very shallow corners, which then lead into very tight corners, so it's almost unwise to make a move into either turn 1 or up at Brundle, because you can easily be overtaken at the following corner. So a lot of drivers don't even bother trying to overtake up there unless they know they can get the car past. As a result, we see very little overtaking on any part of the circuit, and it can be a very difficult track for drivers, and it's why qualifying was so vital, and it's why qualifying was arguably the crux of the whole weekend, especially for a lot of the drivers towards the rear of the field who needed a strong result but were struggling to get it in a very competitive field.
Well, certainly it was, as Connor said, kind of difficult to make progress, I would say. And race number 2, there was lots of stuff that did happen, particularly to Jordan Kane as well, because he on his debut Formula 3 weekend, as we mentioned earlier in the show, actually took pole position from race number 1, having finished in 8th place. That meant he was on pole for the reverse grid race, and that is where he stayed. Jamie Chadwick, who was alongside Jordan on the start of race number 2, she kind of disappeared. What happened to Jamie in race 2?
Well, I think Jamie ran into a lot of problems this weekend, and while I don't know if there was any sort of technical problems with the car or there was any personal problems with herself, she certainly wasn't adapted to this circuit. She certainly struggled to get a grip of the car. Qualifying pace was not that successful as far as I remember, and practice pace, I believe she was always sort of towards the lower end of the top 10, if not outside of it. So to have her up at the front for race 2 was a surprise for her in terms of actual pace, and as a result we probably saw her moving back to where we expected to finish, which is towards the bottom end of the top 10. In terms of why Kane didn't fall back as much as she did, well, I think that was more a case of Kane securing his position in the opening few laps. We talk about overtaking being a very difficult thing at this circuit. The point Kane did correct was he managed to keep the lead in the opening 2 laps, and when you do that, it's very hard for the drivers behind to get any momentum off you. Chadwick lost a few positions off the grid, and from there was really on the back foot as she was under pressure from a lot of further ahead of her and started behind her on the grid because of the reverse race format. So it will be a race she'll have to learn from, and it would be great if she can come back stronger next weekend, but at the moment she really is sort of struggling in that double R car, and I don't see too much of a way back from it at the next round at Silverstone.
Well, I have slightly more optimistic hopes for Jamie Chadwick, and I mean, anything can happen basically in Formula 3, and it just might. So I'm certainly not going to write Jamie off. She's a super talented racing driver, and for race number 3. By the way, it was Enem Ahmed who started on pole position, with James Pull alongside him in second position. Maybe race 3 was going to be the chance that Pull had to win his first race in Formula 3. Not quite.
Indeed. Pull, although was very strong during qualifying, as we said, and practice, also had good pace. In terms of race pace, Pull really hasn't been here this weekend. He fell off quite a lot in race 2. I think he was almost outside the top 10 at one point.
He did have a puncture in race 2.
Yes, that is true. He struggled to finish, I believe. And as for race 3, it was shown that he really just didn't have the pace to keep up with Ahmed, not until the end of the encounter when he was finally setting fastest laps. But the only reason he was able to keep within a few seconds of Ahmed towards the end was because of the pressure that Toby Sowery, who had taken second within the first corner, applied to the championship leader. And race 1 proved that Pull is struggling to compete with Ahmed on outright pace, and at Snetterton at least, and race 3 proved that he can be in contention for a win, but he does need the others around him to help to be a bit of a blockade or a rival to Ahmed, because if you just gang up on each other and try and chase Ahmed later, then he's gone. He's lost down the road. Sowery was very wise in the opening lap, and when he overtook Pull, he didn't bother about defending Pull. Pull made a few sort of darting looks. Sowery wasn't really interested, and in doing so he managed to pull up behind Ahmed and really close the gap at one point in the race, setting fastest laps and getting within a second of Ahmed for a majority of the affair. But Pull needs to learn from Sowery, because he's in a different machine. Lannon is arguably not as competitive as Carlin this year, and if Sowery can pull off the same pace as Pull, then it says a lot about the British driver, who needs to sort of up his game when it comes to Ahmed.
I'm feeling very critical vibes coming from Connor at the moment. I don't know what to say, Connor.
Well, in fairness, but before this goes too far, I will say that I think Pull is one of the quickest drivers in F3. However, this was a poor weekend for him, and he needs to sort of...
Do you think it's a one-off?
I think it's a one-off, yes, certainly. He's proven that he can compete at the front, and his results have been very consistent this year. But he's down to 6th in the championship now, and after a few rounds of being second and third and sort of fighting with Cameron Dowers and Ozzy Ahmed at Alton Park, we all remember, this needs to be a weekend where he needs to take precedence and understand that improvements need to be made.
Double podium here at Snetterton, and if that counts as a disappointing weekend, okay. But anyway, let's hear from him after the podium on race number 3, chatting to me, where he was actually very disappointed. Right, race 3. Didn't actually chat to Sowery.
This is Motorsport Radio. Join the conversation and have your say on motorsport-radio.com.
Paul trying to take away the positives from this weekend, chatting to me just after another podium, a double podium this weekend, has to be said. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, James. Chill out. But as Connor mentioned so eloquently, that he is slipping behind in his championship fights. Is there a way back for James?
Oh, certainly. As I tried to make clear, this was a one-off weekend for James. As much as I put a lot of criticism on him, he can definitely come back, and he has the car, he has the equipment, he now has the comparison with the teammates, with obviously Ahmed and Daz, who actually managed to have a fairly solid weekend despite slipping back in qualifying, and so I do think he can make it back, and he'll definitely sort of be fighting with people like Callan O'Keefe, Toby Sowry, obviously Daz, as we mentioned. The question is, though, can he catch Ahmed? Can anyone catch Ahmed? At least to any sort of significant degree, and that will be the point: is can he be as quick as Ahmed towards the end of the season, and can he be on level footing with him?
That is the ultimate question, and I suppose it's only right that we hear from the race winner of race 3, Inam Ahmed, chatting to me after he won another race. Winner again. Well done.
Yeah, well, it's been a really awesome weekend to get another 2 wins. It's been awesome. Also 6th win of the year, and I was happy to be my good friend Ricky's. I think he held the record for 5 wins last year, so I was happy to beat him with 6 finally, and that was like always at the back of my mind. But yeah, it's been an awesome weekend. Team's been faultless. I pushed really hard coming into this weekend because Cameron was quicker than me. Genuinely, he was actually quicker than me at Rockingham. So I worked really, really hard off the track to make sure I'll be the quickest here. So yes, paid off.
You did set another fastest lap of the weekend as well. How were you so dominant around it? I know you said before the weekend you kind of usually go well, or you love this track, but what is it in particular, and where do you find the speed?
Well, I've always been quite good around here. Tracks with like quite hard braking zones. I've always been even from my karting days, you can ask anyone, I've always been really good on the brakes. So here's a lot of straight braking, and that's where I make a lot of time up. And yeah, I think all the Carlin guys, I think it's going to be between us 3 for the championship, and also Toby. I think Toby's been unlucky in the early part of the season, but he actually is like probably always one of the quickest guys out there. I think. Well, obviously at the start of the year when we were doing the pre-season, I was generally the quicker, much quicker out of the Carlin guys, but they've all been learning off my data and things like that. So now James and Cameron are quite close to me now. They've had quite a full pre-season of testing to learn off me. So now I have to work even harder to keep that advantage that I've got of pace. So generally when I go out in practice sessions now, I have to like really push myself to find extra time. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. The next few tracks are probably going to be the most interesting. It's probably going to mix things up a lot because not many people have tested around these tracks. None of us have tested much around these tracks, so cars are going to be probably not going to have as much of an advantage with the car, and also driving wise, not many people have done much testing at Silverstone Spa, or especially Brands GP. So I think the challenging few rounds are going to be the next one for sure.
Do I take that to mean that perhaps you and the rest of the team who haven't also tested as well would be less confident compared to the confidence that you've taken into, say, this weekend?
Yeah, you could say that. I don't think we're going to have an advantage with the car just purely because we haven't had a chance to test around there. But I'm confident in what I can do. Even when I was with Douglas last year, I was in these tracks. I was still like really fast. I was top 4 in pace, and yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Team harmony seems to be still good, certainly in public anyway.
Yeah, no, we all get on well. So it's a bit of fun, really.
Excellent stuff. You won't be hanging around Formula 3 at the end of this season, am I right in saying that?
Sorry?
If you do pretty well, you won't be hanging around this championship.
Oh yeah, obviously I think if I come top 3 in the championship, hopefully I'll move on.
To where?
I'm thinking to stay in Formula 3, but hopefully do the FIA Formula 3 championship. That's definitely like the next stepping stone for me, because
not Renault 2 litre or anything.
No, I think that would be a step down because these cars are quicker than Renault 2 litre, so it wouldn't make sense. It would make sense for me to do another F3 championship and go a step higher. So I think FIA F3 will probably be the next year. And Carlin doing quite well this year, so hopefully I might just slide in there.
Yeah, you can do a Lando, I suppose. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, Lando's the best driver out there by far, so it's going to be hard to match what he's done. But all I'm doing is just focusing on myself, improving myself, and we'll see how it goes.
Like you say, you're in certainly the right team to do it anyway. So, well done. Congrats once again, and onwards to Silverstone.
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's been first time in my car career where I've been in the best team.
in a series, then it's very different. Like, you know, the car's always there all the time. You know, they're very encouraging. So yeah, awesome. Thanks very much, Lester.
Enem Ahmed, another win under his belt, stretching the championship lead. Is the championship over in British F3? Is it going to be a walkover for Ahmed? Is it going to be boring? Why should people still tune in to the British F3 Championship if Ahmed's just going to do a Schumacher or a Norris and basically blitz everybody?
Well, I suppose first point in saying that even Norris hasn't dominated the championship as much as Ahmed has, so you could say it's hardly a comparison, but I'm sure there'll be some people who disagree. In terms of the championship this weekend, I think it is definitely going to be a case of who can catch Ahmed, which might just be a question we sort of give up asking at some point in the season. But there is still chance for people to catch him. Last time in Alton Park he had a bit of a poor round, and I know Daz got within about I think it was 15 points before the weekend. So there is proof that he can be caught, and a poor weekend is going to be very critical, and these consistent results are what's going to be is what's going to help the drivers. I mean, last season we saw in BRDC F3 Collard lost the championship quite famously because he wasn't consistent in the final round. He made that mistake. He had that retirement, and that was one more retirement than he needed, and allowed Lice to catch up, and Mateus took full advantage of it. Mateus didn't get a win in that final weekend. He was just very consistent with his results, and that's all he needed to be. And so it will be a case of people like Daz who are consistent, people like Callan O'Keefe.
I'd say James Paul is consistent. He's consistently on the podium.
He is, in fairness, and the retirement he had in race 2 plus the one he had in Rockingham will really hurt him later in the season, I think. But for the time being, Ahmed's yet to retire from a race. We'll see what happens when he's had maybe 1 or 2 retirements, and Daz and O'Keefe and Sowry and Paul can all sort of close the gap up. But for the time being, Ahmed is still out in front, and it's going to be hard to catch him. It's going to be very hard to get anywhere close to him, but wins are still definitely on the table for the rest of the field.
Definitely, including the second place man, Toby Sowry, who finished on the podium for was it actually his first time on the podium this season? I can't remember. So much has happened already.
No, I think he has been on the podium before, but it was a good weekend from Sowry. It was a very good weekend. He's had a lot of bad luck in the last few rounds, and this is definitely what he needed. The failures in qualifying at Rockingham and the struggles and the retirement in race 1 in Alton Park really put him on the back foot on both occasions. So for a result like this, it proves that he's still one of the quickest guys out there. It proves he's in the championship fight, and he's been one of the ones to benefit in the championship this weekend. I think he's up to 4th in the overall standings now, which proves he's still very much in there. And even if we're very critical and say, we can't win the championship anymore because he had that bad start, 2nd, 3rd is still very much on the table for him, and he'll know that going into the end of the year.
Yeah, indeed. And just to add to what Connor said as well, Toby had a fantastic fight that I was watching in race number 2 for 4th place, albeit it was still a fantastic fight with Ben Hingley as well for race number 2. It was just a little noteworthy thing that I thought was worthy of noting, basically. But yeah, race number 3, as we said, was won brilliantly by Enem Ahmed, and he kind of confirmed what I think we all really sort of suspected. We're not really surprised in that he says he's off to Euro F3. He did preface that by saying if he finishes in the top 3, but there's absolutely no way that he's not going to finish in the top 3 unless something catastrophic happens, is there? So basically he's off to Euro F3.
Well,
next year, I mean.
Well, yeah, don't rule out anything, of course, Lester. I mean, we've seen some pretty tragic incidents in single-seaters in the last couple of weeks, and we don't want anything like that to happen to any of the drivers, but they all must know the risks and possibilities. Saying that, of course, Ahmed, I think, would definitely be in line for an F3 seat. Moves like what Will Palmer's done in the past to Euro Cup probably wouldn't be the best for him. As he said, it'd be a bit of a move sideways. And in fairness, I agree, British F3 does need to prop itself as...
F3's a lot bigger than Renault 2 Lisa, though. I said it.
Yes, but we are at the national level. European F3, I think, a lot...
national packed full of international superstars?
Maybe, but at the same time, I think
that's just an old mindset, to be honest, that British F3 is like a glorified club championship, that it just races on the same bill, coincidentally, as British GT. I think it's an international massive event that draws international drivers with big budgets on their way to Formula 1.
Oh, well, I think big budgets is going a bit far, Lester, consider...
Well, compared to someone who doesn't have a budget.
Well, okay, true. But British F3 is a very respectable series, and it's definitely above any of the F4s we have in the world. It's in line, arguably, with Euro Formula, and has got to be competing itself with Formula Renault at some point, and it needs to do that. Is it as big as European F3? No, it's not. Is it as big as Euro Cup? Maybe not. And I think that's a point. We've seen a lot of drivers step over from what was BRDC F4 and now British F3 to Euro Cup. I mean, last year we saw Thomas Maxwell, who was racing in this championship, is now racing in Euro Cup, and he's doing pretty well over there. But in what should be a sideways step, Maxwell is not dominating the championship. He's not really near the front in any way, and it's a lot more difficult for him.
Well, that doesn't mean the championship's on par with British F3 just because a driver hasn't developed in the standard sort of upwards trajectory that, I mean, just because you're successful here in British F3 doesn't mean that that's going to carry through to a lower formula in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, there's
people develop at different rates.
Of course, there's a lot of development between drivers, and it's very hard to compare two different series just by one driver. At the same time, though, we can do the other end of the comparison, and we say series like Euro Formula, which of course we've got people like Colton Herter, who did a joint campaign last year with British F3. Petri Florescu's doing a joint campaign this year, although with just one round with Florescu it might be a little difficult to compare. The best comparison I suppose we could have is someone like Amir Vajanathan, who took...
It's easy for you to say.
Exactly. Who took, I believe, a podium this weekend. He might have taken more than one, actually. Which was a very successful weekend for him, but he struggled a lot in British F3, and he struggled a lot in British F4, actually, and now he's coming to the front, to the foray. And so as you can say, it's very much hard to compare series when drivers develop at different rates. Someone like Vajanathan, who rocketed away in Euro Formula in this season, really struggled in British F3 last season. Does that mean British F3 is way above Euro Formula? Not necessarily, but it's a case of driver development. But at the same time, a lot of drivers know where the British F3 bill sits on the calendar, and it will be a step up for them from F4. We've seen that from where we get our graduates.
Well, we've seen Jordan Kane preferring to not go into British F4 and wait, which often meant waiting sat on the sidelines instead of racing. And imagine a 15-year-old sat on the sidelines being able to technically race, but preferring to not race because he prefers British F3 instead of British F4.
Yeah, I mean,
technically
race. We've seen that. We've seen this in British F4 this year. I mean, Ollie Caldwell won't make his debut until the next British F4 round, when he could have been racing in Ginetta Juniors as he was last season, but he decided to skip that and is racing half a year in British F4 to do a full campaign in 2018. Is what he's planning, at least. Back to F3 though, it will be a point of where this championship goes from here, and how big of an international crowd it can get. We had 16 drivers this weekend. It would have been 17 if it wasn't obviously for Harry Hayek, who, if you haven't mentioned, Lester, sadly broke a few vertebrae in his back during testing. We wish him obviously the best of luck going forward, and we hope to see him back in the next few rounds. But we are down on numbers compared to last year, and the championship needs to start attracting more international stars, especially when series like Euro Cup are attracting 30 members, and even Euro F3 is attracting 20, and those all have much higher budgets than the British F3 crowd.
It's still, I mean, Euro F3, not the FIA European F3, but the Euro, what was it called?
Euro Formula Open. It might be best might be best just call it Open from now on. It might be easier. I don't know.
Yeah, F3 Open in Europe is kind of seen, even though as I don't know the budgets myself, I don't know, no idea. But if Connor's to be believed, then the budgets are higher over there. than they are for British F3, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much this is necessarily true, but in working it out, a lot of the drivers I've spoken to have said they preferred the British F3 package because, in general, when all the costs were taken into account, British F3 was cheaper than British F4, which seemed very unusual.
I can actually believe that, to be honest, because, well, I'm editing myself here. I'm going to literally stop myself from saying something. But I can believe I can believe that British F3 is a more attractive proposition. There seems to be, and I've criticised a whole raft of similar level championships in the past for all clambering for young talent and pitching themselves and promoting themselves as being the ladder championship to Formula One, the next stepping stone formula, only to see budgets skyrocket and the championship collapse ultimately. So
yeah, I mean, we saw that with the old version of British F3, and as much as I know many of the purists would love to see the old F3 cars back, and I know your guest you had on recently, Nick Smith, is very adamant about the old F3 cars.
It is a conversation for another day, but obviously anybody who does believe that the British F3 Championship cars this year in 2017 are not Formula 3 cars, then you're wrong.
Yes, I'm sure a few people will have some angry comments to say, and feel free to also type them in the comment section below. I mean, there are technical details of why this isn't a technical FIA F3, and we can go into the details about that later. But for the time being, this is what it's serving. I think we have to treat this like Euro Formula, which is that it's not technically an F3. We can't call it an F3. Well, we can call this one an F3, but it's a series that exists in Europe. Shut up.
There we go, you have it here first. It's a series that exists.
Okay, I should clarify that by saying it's a series that deserves its place between the F3 and F4 ladder.
I know what you mean. I was I was being a dick. But yes, so back to F3 then. Championship being wonderfully led by a huge margin, so big I can't even calculate the amount of points. How far NM Ahmed's leading at the moment, and at 44, I'm told in my ear. But yes, so British F3. I'm going to put you on the spot, Connor, because that's what I do from time to time. Drivers that you might not think, if you only read about Formula 3 from Facebook comments or Twitter comments, you know what I mean. Which drivers perhaps stood out, took a leap forward in performance this weekend than you would probably otherwise have thought, reading comments online from people who weren't here?
Which driver stood out, I assume you mean, yes. Yeah. In terms of the weekend so far, I think it was a very strong debut from Jordan Kane, and although he had mediocre results in maybe some of the other races, his pace overall was very positive throughout the entire weekend, actually, considering, as you say, he's had very little running in his car, and obviously the other competitors have 2 rounds on him, and so I think he needs to be someone to watch. In terms of another driver I think could do well outside the series that we haven't seen too much of, I think Ben Hingley needs to be given a Carlin car. Let's put it that way. He clearly has the pace. He's much quicker than his teammate on equal turns and equal footing. He's out-qualified him on, I think, pretty much every qualifying session we've had so far. And is keeping up with the front runners and has collected his own win in what effectively is a car that has struggled in the last couple of years. And he was very good towards the end of last season when the car was competitive, but now we're moving into the new season and he needs to be a championship competitor. He's not really getting that, and he needs to prove himself in a front running team, because at this level he's certainly on pace with people like Sauri, people like Ahmed, people like Daz.
So there you go. Ben Hingley is a name that Connor identifies as someone who's really stepped up in performance or stood out this weekend. Personally, I've said it earlier in the show during the my little pre-race sort of grid walk, I suppose, in the assembly area where drivers go to mentally prepare themselves and appreciate it. People not sticking microphones in their face, which I didn't do because that's what we do. I've always stuck up for people who get slagged off perhaps a bit unfairly from one video that gets, I don't know, tweeted on WTF1 of a driver just having one incident, and that seems to be the narrative of his entire career. I'm talking about Manuel Maldonado. I did jump to his defence, and to be fair, he has had a pretty solid weekend, really, in that he's not crashed, which would be the basic requirement for a driver. He's been taught now. He's been driver coached by Sam Brabham. Yeah. Which is a fantastic name to be coached by. I'm sure any driver would be like to be coached by a Brabham. But yeah, Manuel Maldonado, I do think he's often given too much of a bad rap just because of his name, and that's unfair. I suppose as the season develops, my opinion might develop. I'm not a fan or a hater. Either way, I'll always adapt my opinions to whatever the situation is, and whatever the facts are as well. So that's my little rant over about Manuel, and also as well the Brazilian who we finally got the correct pronunciation of his name. I don't think I can pronounce it, but I'll give it a go. Guilherme.
Guilherme. Yeah, Guilherme. Go home.
Samaya. I did it wrong. It was all right.
In fairness to Samaya's defence, he's someone I went into the season with a lot of expectation for, and I've been a little disappointed with the results he's got so far, but his pace has been moderately there. He's about on pace with people like Chadwick, who, like himself, has not stepped in the car before, so that's a fair positive. We have got to remember he came from Brazil as I think it was as the A-class runner-up and the former B-class champion, I believe it was. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. But he has that national F3 pedigree, and we've seen Brazilians come into this championship before. Obviously, last year's champion was Brazilian Matheus Leist, and we have seen it with...
He still is Brazilian.
Exactly. And people like Enzo Bortolotto, who came in and did very well last season, despite his notable incident down at Rockingham. So it is a championship where Brazilians can develop their European skill, and I'm a little disappointed that obviously he's not been too much towards the front, especially compared to obviously teammates Hayek and Chadwick. But then again, neither of them have really picked up any podiums this season. Chadwick did pick up one podium, obviously, but it'd be interesting to see if Samaya can move towards the front a bit more, because I really do think he has the potential.
If you've got any contrary opinions, then get in touch with us. It's at M-Sport Radio on Twitter. It's Motorsport Radio on Facebook. And you can email us hello@motorsport-radio.com. That's all from myself and Connor Jackson. Thank you very much for listening and tuning in to our show today on Monday Motorsport on Motorsport Radio. Thank you very much to Nick Smith of the Image team and the 956 Limited. And also to Dan Marr, who's not with us at the end of the show, but he is here in spirit and probably over my shoulder somewhere. But thank you very much for listening and tuning in to today's show. I'll be back again very soon to talk about some more epic action right here on Motorsport Radio.
Hello, I'm Harry Hayek. I'm 19 years old and currently racing British F3 for RR in this year's 2017 Championship. This is Motorsport Media.
This is Monday Motorsport with Lester Forbes on Motorsport Radio. Motorsport Radio.